go. We're ready to go. Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Margaret with Sacramento Art Classes and I will be your teacher for tonight as we do a watercolor painting. The title of the painting today is Koi Joy. So if you're here for Koi Joy 101, you're in the right place. Welcome back to anyone who's been here before and to anybody new. Great to have you. My name is Margaret and I have been an art teacher for 20 years. I teach, I had a private studio and I teach at an elementary school in the Sacramento area. And now I'm also teaching online. So lots of experience and I'm looking forward to tonight. You did probably notice if you got here right before you saw my face that I had a sign up about a virtual tip jar. So I want you to know from the start, this is designed to be a free class. So no pressure, tips are definitely not expected or required. I just put it up there because some people do like to do that. So you're in the right place if you're here for the free class. The format for tonight's class is going to be as follows. After I'm done yakking it up here, we're going to move over to the table where I will be doing a quick drawing demonstration of these fish, and then we'll start right in with the painting. We have 90 minutes for this, so I won't talk long, but I do want you to know that the format here is like kind of a question and answer. If you have a question, please type it in, and I'm going to try and keep an eye on the feed as it scrolls through. Sometimes I miss things, so if I miss your question, I want you to know that I always go back tonight and tomorrow and Sunday, and I read through everything and I answer everything. So if I miss you and don't get it tonight, I will get you as soon as possible and get your questions answered. And I wanted to ask you, please, if you would, it's so fun for me to see where everybody comes from. So if you wouldn't mind writing your name, for example, Steve and Julie from Tahoe. Write your name and tell me where you're from. That would be great. I would love to look back on that because it's always fun to see how far you come. And this is a kid-friendly class, so please keep all your comments appropriate for kids. I do have some of my students from my school in here tonight with their parents too, so we always like to make sure everybody feels comfortable and welcome. What else? One question I get all the time is, will this video be available as a recording? And the answer is yes. So after we're done with our live class, I click a little save button and it appears on Facebook on my page. So you're just going to have to go to Sacramento Art Classes and on Facebook, and it'll be there. And all the other videos that I've done ahead of time before this are also there. So you could watch it again if you feel like you didn't catch something, or I went too fast, or you just love it so much you want to see it again, or to share with a friend. So that's there for you. And last thing I think, before we move to the painting, our next class, I'm taking requests, but the title is Dream Vacation. So Dream Vacation might mean something from Hawaii, or something from Tahoe, or something from Yosemite, but I want to do a landscape, a simple landscape, so please feel free to make a request, and then next week I will unveil the new painting for you. And that will happen. The class itself is July 31st, same time, same bat time, same bat channel. People my age know what that means, but it's just July 31, 7 p.m. right here in the same spot where you are tonight. Okay, so if you're just joining, welcome. I'm Margaret, and right now, again, if you get dizzy, look away, because I'm going to move the camera and have it face down onto the table so that we can see the painting. Go get your wine, or go get your, whatever you got, snacky thing, and your drink, and I will be right with you. So here we go. We're going to change this up. I'm standing on a little stool to do this. There we go. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, dizzy again. Sorry. All right. Also, just in case you're new and you don't know this, what I see on my monitor is delayed by at least 10 or 15 seconds from what you see. So you are ahead of the game here. So sometimes if it feels a little funny, it's just because I'm on this delay where I can't see what I'm talking about at the same time as I'm talking about it. Does that make sense? Okay, here I come. You ready? Ready? Okay. We should be able to see, what are we seeing? Oh, we're gonna see my hands in a second on top of the paper here. Okay, so let's get all this stuff out of the way here, and I'll quickly go over what we're gonna be using tonight. I have 3 brushes that I'm gonna be working with. Move this guy out of the way, and we'll move this guy out of the way later. Okay, I'm using 3 different brushes tonight. I have a number 12 round, which looks like this. I will be able to zoom in later as well, so know that we're zooming in. I have a number 6 round, which looks like this. So these are the approximate sizes, and I have a little detail brush. Now, you're at home and it's COVID, and maybe you don't have any supplies, or you don't have the same kinds of things as me, and that's okay, because I just want you to use what you have. So if you have pastels that you want to use, or if you have markers or acrylics or whatever, I'm not going to know what you use, so you're not going to get in trouble here. You should just use what's fun for you. Okay, now the paper that I'm using tonight is Arches 140-pound watercolor paper. You could use a hot press, which is smooth, or a cold press, which is a little bit rougher. Either way is fine. And then here is my palette, and I did clean it up for you today, so even though it looks kind of messy, I actually cleaned it for you. And I want you to know ahead of time too, in case you haven't painted a lot, it's nice to have a little mister like this, little spray bottle, because before you start painting, you might want to just put a few little mists into the colors that you think you're going to use. So I'm using a range of blues and a purple and a turquoise tonight. And then over here, I'm probably going to use this orange. I'll tell you all the names of these colors as I'm painting with them, so don't worry about that. And I might use a little yellow. And one more over here is kind of like a gray-black. Okay, so I'm just showing you that it's good to put a little mist, giving you a little reminder to put a little mist on your paper beforehand. And then I always have a rag or a towel or something like this so I can blot my brushes on, and my big giant jug of water, which mine is a laundry detergent jug that I use for water. Okay, so let's zoom in just a little bit. By the way, every time we zoom in, I have to stand up and get on a little chair because I'm using an iPhone here. There we go. I'll move the paper for you in just a second. And unfortunately, I don't know of a techie gadget that will let me zoom from remote, so I have to stand up and do it. Okay, there we go. Let's move the paper down a little bit. Now, I ahead of time sketched mine here, but I want to do a new sketch for you on a piece of paper. So you're going to see me using a Sharpie. Please, when you do it, don't use a Sharpie. Use just a normal pencil with an eraser. Some of you have done this ahead of time, and just, I don't remember if I mentioned it, I'm going to post the sketch ahead of time for every painting from now on. So not only will you see a sample painting, but you're also going to see a sample sketch. Okay, that'll just help us out. But we'll still always have the little drawing demo too. Okay, now when you have your paper in front of you, we need to have it in the horizontal position, which is called landscape. And I would like you to kind of take a look at the spacing on your paper. And we'll even look at the spacing on my sample. To go back and forth a little bit for space here. But please notice how the little snout of the fish is not right up close to the edge of the paper, okay? It's got about maybe 1.5 inches to 2 inches from each side, okay? We don't want our fish to feel like they're totally crammed in here. So as we start to draw, we're gonna make sure to leave a little space in front of each fish. And I've also done a composition here where we have a nice kind of like sideways S that's going to happen in between the fish. And that gives it a real flowy look, real kind of watery, flowy look. So try to keep those things in mind while you're drawing. I need to move this out of the way a little bit. And, okay, so again with your pencil, put your fingers somewhere over on the left-hand side where you maybe think you want the nose to start, and we're just going to forget about all the fins on the fish. We're only going to do his shape right now. So starting on the nose, let's give it kind of, it's just a little kind of a, I don't know, slightly curved line, and that'll be his little snout. And then coming up around here, we're going to draw a curved line, keeping in mind our spacing. You know, we're not getting too close to the edge because we want to have room for these fins. And then I'm bringing it to about there. Mary in Trinidad, hello. Trudy from San Jose. Terry from Modesto. Great. Thank you guys for telling me where you're from. If you got here late, it's always fun for me to know that, so you can put it in the comments. Okay, now put your pencil back where you ended, and let's bring the tail off the edge of the page like this. It's really fun to let some of the fins and tails to go off the edge of the page, because it keeps him from being squished inside. Okay, now we're going to go back up here to where we started with that snout, and we're going to go to this side of the fish. It's sort of banana shaped, but when we get close to the tail, it gets much skinnier than a banana. We'll stop right there for now. And at this point, this is the skinniest part of the tail. Then we're going to take our pencil again and fan the tail out a little bit, maybe like that. So let's go about that far for now. I'm not going to draw any of these lines right in here. I think I'm going to let that happen with the watercolor. So I meant to leave that blank, so don't worry about that. You can fill yours in if you want to by finishing off the tail, or you can leave it open like that. Okay, now no fins yet, just the body. So now let's do the underside fish. Remember, we're kind of having this nice curve in the middle, so the other snout is going to happen right here. We're leaving space again in between the snout and the edge of the paper, so we just do a little kind of a curved shape like that. And if you joined late and you see me using a Sharpie, it's just so that you can see what's happening more easily than if I use a pencil. Okay, let's do the underside first. We're going to come around like this, and whoops, I did a little bit too large. Right here would be where the eye is, so it's kind of got a small bulge coming out there. And again, I'm skipping past that fin, curving up around here, and I'm going to stop right about there. So I stopped a little bit past this guy's nose or snout. If you are doing this and you remember, you have an eraser. I don't. So if your snout looks too much like a pig, you can erase that and fix it. Unless you want it to be where he's like reaching for food, then it would sort of be piggy looking. Okay, let's come back up here where we left off. We're going to bring the other side of his head around like this. All right, skipping the fins, and we come down, and right here, sorry, I gotta move my arm in a weird way. We're gonna give it a little curve. So just like we curved the top fish, we're gonna curve this guy upwards. By the time this is done, it's gonna have kind of that yin-yang feel, because it's got, you know, those two balancing sides. Okay, so now back to the tail on this guy. Let's take part of it off the edge of the page like that. And then this part here, we'll call it the upper part, we're gonna let that kind of flick around here, just like we did that one. So we have a nice flip to the tail. How we doing? Everybody okay? Park Ridge, Illinois. Yay, welcome. Deanna, nice to see you. Thank you. And then Granite Bay, I see. What else? Hi, Virginia. How are you? Hi, Brooke. How are you? All right. Okay, now, again, I left this tail open, unfinished, but just in case you need to see what it could look like, you can do something like this. You can just do maybe a little feeling like kind of something like that. And if it bugs you to leave it open, I'll do this one too. Maybe, whoops, I got a little curvy on that one, but that's okay. Maybe we can think of it as sort of an extra flip on that tail. Okay, so we have these nicely placed fish. Now it's time to put some fins in here. So if you need to see this as a reminder, I did add some fins down here, and you can, if you want them, you can have them or you can leave them out. It's kind of, I think some of the koi fish are different than others. So if you like the way that looks, I'm going to draw one with it and one without it, so you can choose whichever you like. So now on this bottom guy, we look for that bulge where the eye was, right? And I probably should have put a little more bulge over here, but I'm gonna be fine with it for now. So behind that bulge where the eye is, we're gonna start a fin, and let's let it come off the edge of the page just like we did with the tail. I kind of did a little curvy thing in there. Think of it as long and flowy, and it's really one of those very fancy koi or those goldfish that have a really long tail and long fins. So I think it looks prettier with longer than kind of shorter, stubbier ones. Okay, and let's go back up here and do the other side. So about maybe 1/2 inch or so, depending on what size your paper is. We're going to bring this out, and I'm just going to let that one go off the edge of the page for now. If you don't like it, shorten it up. Maybe you prefer something like, I don't know, like that. Either way, I like to give you a variety, and you can do whatever feels good to you. It is kind of fun to have some of the stuff go off the edge of the page. Like I said, it just makes it feel like the fish is not crowded and he has space. Okay, so kind of above that and maybe slightly back, I'm going to start the second fin here. And it's going to come around and go like this. And then about 1/2 inch, again, depending on your paper size, we're going to start the bottom. And maybe it's something like that. And because I said that you could choose to have these other extra fins back here, I will show you, and then you make the choice of whether you want it or not. You're going to do kind of back here by the tail. I'm sorry if my hand is in the way. A little tail, just a little guy like that, maybe something like that. Okay, that's going to be up to you. And because you all have erasers, could you please erase these lines I'm going to put an X on, okay? Please erase this line right here. We don't want to really separate the fin and the body so much. Please erase this line right here. And then also down here, erase these two. Sorry, my X's are a little crazy down there. Okay, and then if you are looking at it and you feel like your pencil marks are really dark, you can take a moment later on to maybe lighten them up a little bit, because once you paint over your pencil marks, you cannot erase them later. It's not a big deal. It's okay to have pencil marks showing in a watercolor, but if you don't like it, you want to kind of maybe lighten them up before we get to the actual painting. Okay, so now let's finish this top guy up here. His fins I'm going to make a little bit different, so we look for that sort of bulge in the head where the eye would be, and we go a little behind that, and we do a fin like this, and about 1/2 inch wide. Let's see, how do I want this one to go? How about if this one is kind of maybe something like that? Yours will be better than mine because you get to erase and I don't. And then again on this side, look for that bulge, go behind the bulge, and their fins are almost holding hands. I know some of you are going to be really creative and maybe have really long fins where some overlapping happens, so that'll be neat to see. Okay, now for sake of time, I'm not going to draw the other little fins like I did here on this guy, because maybe they're different. Maybe one has a fin. This guy's got a little more flowing stuff happening. Maybe he's a fin, double fin fish, and this is a single fin. But I do need you to erase these lines right here. And we are not worrying about any spots or any eyes or anything at all right now. We're ready to go ahead and get into the painting. Woohoo! How are we doing? I'm trying to take a look on here if there are any questions while we are finishing up the drawing. Chico, hello Debbie from Chico. Linda, hi Jackie. Hello Marcia. Marcia comes to my daytime classes and she just loves painting koi fish. Hi Marcia. Okay. Let me get this out of the way and we will move on to the painting. Are you ready? please don't be nervous, because I hear from people all the time things like, I feel like I have to get it right on the first time, or I feel like maybe it's going too fast even though I'm trying to pause. It does go a little fast because we need to get this done in 90 minutes, but I try to pause as much as I can for us. Let me see, I gotta go a little bit lower with my paper for you. I lost my train of thought. Too much rambling. Anyway, remember, you can always watch the video again. And oh yeah, I was saying, if you're nervous, you know, you have nothing to lose. Remember, it's a free class. So if you don't like your first one, then just look at the recording and paint another one and just have fun and just do your best. Okay? Okay. All right, now I'm going to start out with my larger brush, which is a number 12. I'll hold them up again all together so you can kind of see the difference between these three brushes that I have. Let me get right in the camera for you. Okay, so the big one that I'm going to start with, the number 12, looks like this next to my non-manicured thumbnail. So it's pretty good size. If you don't have that, no worries. It's just going to take you just a little bit longer to paint because you don't have a large brush, but you're going to do fine and it's great. Okay, so in watercolor painting, there is a technique called wet into wet. That means that you're going to take your wet paint and you're going to paint it onto wet paper. So we have to wet the paper ahead of time. Let's do this bottom fish first, which is this guy right here, because that's my favorite one. I like that better. So we're going to do that guy first. And what I need you to do is get your brush wet. Okay, and it's a hot day, and if you have a ceiling fan on or anything blowing on the table, you will find that your paper is going to dry out a little faster. So we just want to kind of work quickly on this, and if your paper starts to dry out too fast, then just go ahead and repaint it again with clear water. Okay, so I have just clear water on the brush, and I'm trying my best to stay inside the lines. I'm not doing the fins. I'm only doing the body, so keep your fins dry. Sorry, I got a little piece of hair on there, a little brush hair. That's going to give me trouble and not come off. All right, well, we'll ignore it. If you see it later, that's what that is. Okay, so you're just staying inside the lines of the fish body and painting clear water on the whole fish body, and let's go into the tail also on that one. Okay, if I use a larger brush so I can get this to happen faster, you know, get the water or the clear water moving around. But if you're using a smaller brush, like I said, it's going to take you a little bit longer, and sometimes you even have to tip your paper to see the reflection of where the water is ahead of time and where it is not. For those of you who are doing this with pastel or some other type of paint, you do not have to be wetting it. Please don't wet it, actually, if you're using pastel. Julie and Steve. Julie and Steve are having a marriage togetherness weekend in Tahoe, and they decided to paint with us, so that was pretty cool. Okay, and now I'm just going to switch to a little bit smaller brush because I want to make sure, and I'm tipping my paper a little so I can see that reflection. I just want to make sure I got all the way up to the edge, to the line with my clear water. And we don't want to have any dry spots in there because pretty soon we're going to put some paint on here, and the paint is going to flow beautifully and kind of magically into all the wet spaces. So if you left something dry, it's going to, no paint will actually travel into there, and we want our paint to travel. Okay, I think I'm good. Looks like I got all the dry, everything wet. If you missed a spot, you'll find out soon enough, and you can take care of it then. Okay, so now I'm using this smaller brush again, right? And here's the reminder of the fish I'm working on, the lower one that has more white on it. So right now, my clear water fish is very wet and very shiny. So that means that any paint that I introduce into here is going to move fast. It's going to travel around really fast. Let me show you first so that it doesn't freak you out on yours if you're new to painting. Right now, let's see if I can get my palette to show. I'm using an orange, it's called quinacridone burnt sienna, which is a crazy color, but it's basically an orange. And so I want to create a spotty look on my fish, and I want him to have kind of soft lines, not a hard edge outline. So when we're using watercolor, the fun thing to do is do this. You just touch the paper with your paint. I'll zoom in just a second. You're just going to touch that on there like that, and you can see it travels, right? It swims around or bleeds a little bit. You can call it any number of things. You can say bleed or travel or swim around. I'm up here standing on my chair now so I can get you in a little closer. Okay, let's try that. And again, if you're kind of hesitant to start this until you see me do more, I'm sitting back down again. I'm ready to do more. Okay, so as you can see, that really bright orange that I put on here really kind of swam around and traveled a little bit. And now I have this soft spotty area. So I'm going to continue that by just dabbing a little paint onto the fish and kind of creating sort of a random spotty pattern. Maybe I'm going to leave a little gap and start a new spot, and every fish is different, so you don't have to be doing the exact same spots as me. It's good to be unique and individual, so let your creativity go with this. So you can see as I touch the paint on, it swims. And the cool thing is remember that technique I talked about, that wet into wet? This paint is not swimming anywhere where I have dry paper. So remember, it's dry over here, it's only wet in the fish body. So no matter how much paint I put on here, it is never going to travel out past that wet area. It's called a water dam. So the water is kind of blocking or damming the paint from going out here into the dry section. Okay, so let's come on down here. I think I want to have a few more spots down here at the bottom of the tail. And as your paper gets more dry, if you notice on the tail here, look at how little this is swimming. We had swimming, blending, blurring paint up there, but not as much down here, and that's because it started to dry. So if that happens to you, this is what you do. Rinse your brush, have just clear water on the brush again. Sorry, let me scooch that over so you can see better. And I'm just going to touch clear water down here. I'm sort of diluting the paint that I put down here and creating an interesting spot pattern. Maybe I'll follow this body of the fish over here on the side and kind of have it travel up the side or something. Okay, and then I'm going to do a little bit, since that dried, I'm going to put some clear water down here on the tail, because if it dried that fast in that skinny section, it's probably really dry down here in the tail. So now I re-wet it, and I'm just going to take some paint and just touch it on there. Now watch this. If you tip it, you can control the direction that the paint moves. So, oh shoot, you can't see that. Here we go. Okay, so I'm just tipping my paper a little bit so that bleeds down into the tail. All right. I'm going to rinse my brush out and just kind of get that little speck off there, and maybe help a little bit more of that bleed happen into the tail with just clear water. I'm just lightly doing a brush stroke that allows it to go down into that fan part of the tail. Okay, I put some marks on my table today for you all. I put zoom paper, wide angle paper, so I could tell what you'd be able to see and what you wouldn't be able to see with your with my camera and everything. So I'm trying to think ahead for you all. Okay, now before it gets too much drier, I'm going to come back up in here to where I put those first orange spots on and get some more orange paint, and I'm going to drop some on again. And the idea here is that I'm going to be creating a how do you say, like a darker area, because the paper was a little bit more dry. So we learned from in the tail, it doesn't spread around as much as the paper dries. So this second pass with the spots should, if my paper is dry enough, should kind of stay where it is just a little bit more. in a second. Here, I'm going to show you this first fish again. So see how it's really blurry, but then there's some areas in the spots where it's definitely darker, definitely more orange. That's what we're trying to do. That's the effect that we're looking for. So we had really flowy paint, and then as it began to dry, it became kind of set in its place a little bit more and a little bit more. Okay, now for kicks, why don't we have another color maybe coming in there? Maybe you want your fish to have a little bit more of a goldfish color. You could get a yellow. My yellow here is, what am I using? Winsor Yellow Deep. It's like a nice golden sunny yellow. So what if I took a tiny little bit of that, and this is all fun and play, and I just drop that in here a little bit. See, dropping in means like I'm just touching my brush onto that wet paper. So I'm putting just a little bit of yellow on there, or maybe I might put a little bit of red, and it's all going to mix together because we really have a lot of wet area here. Okay, so maybe over here. I know it feels like I'm going fast. I'm going to pause in a minute because I know you're going to sort of want to play around with this and see what happens. Let's see, scooch that up so you can see better. And if you put in a red and you don't like it and it's too red, put some orange over the top of it again. It's kind of a layering thing, and it's always good to wait a little bit in between so that you can let the paper dry out some. I'm gonna look back down here on the tail and see what I see. I think I'm just gonna put a little clear water down here, a couple of little touches of just clear water, because then it'll soften those spots down there a little bit. I wasn't sure I was loving what was happening. Okay, so let's take a few minutes here and play around with this fish. And I did talk about having black. I'm not a fan of just using pure black, but because we only have 90 minutes, it kind of takes a long time to mix paint sometimes, especially when you're a beginner. So I'm using a gray black that I already have, and it's called neutral tint. Looks like this. So I got it really juicy wet in there, and then I'm going to put a little bit on my palette like that, and I'm going to add a little water to it. It's almost got a purpliness to it. Hello from Monterey, Marianne. I wish I was in Monterey. Well, I wish I was teaching you guys, but also in Monterey. Welcome to class. Anybody who has just joined us, welcome. This will be recorded, so if you missed part of it, you're going to be able to catch the recorded version on Facebook indefinitely. It's just going to post there. I'll post it after we're done, and it'll be up for however long. Okay, back to the fish. I have a little black, that neutral tint, which is kind of a black on my brush. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just kind of giving them a couple of spots maybe. And if my paper has already dried, if your paper has already dried, you can re-wet that area. Or you can put it on, put the black on to dry paper, and you will see that you just are going to have a more intense hard edge spot. It is going to not be, it's going to be like very intense and very dark. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how it's going to be, because the drier the paper, the more of a hard edge you have with your paint marks. So be creative with your spots. You'll notice that we have not even talked about eyes or anything like that, so we're not going to worry about that yet. It's going to be the very last thing that we do. Maybe I want a little black over here too. And do I want it in the tail? Sure, I'll have some black in the tail. Thank you for asking. People who are using acrylics, if you are using them, you know, acrylics are very forgiving. So if you don't like something, you just wait till it's dry and paint over it again another time. So that's what's going on with you guys. And then people who are using, maybe there are some kids who are just having fun using some markers or even some colored pencils. So that'll work out well for you too. Pastels, you guys are going to get a chance to be really blendy with those. And I think you'll really love it when we get to the water part, because that's really a chance to have fun with pastels there. And you can see as I'm working, I keep going back in and intensifying some of the spots. But when you feel like you're done, be done. If I'm still working on mine and you're done, maybe you just take a little snack break or something, because one thing that's really easy to do in watercolor is to overdo things, and that happens when we just fuss around with things too much and we don't stop. So if you feel good about what you have, just stop. Just be okay with that. Okay. All right. Right here on this black, I don't care for what happened. So what I'm doing is just going to have clear, just water on my brush, and I'm just going to touch that water on here and sort of soften that up. It's going to dilute it so it looks a little bit more gray here and there, but that's okay because we have a big variety of colors in the fish. Okay, so here's the already painted one, just so that you have something to see. And I tried really hard to be able to make us see both of these at the same time, but when we're on the zoom in like that, it's really hard to be able to see both the completed painting and the in progress painting. So I'm going to try and remember to just keep going back and forth like this for you. All right, let's see here. How about next? I won't do it yet. I'll let you get a little caught up. I'm going to look at the comments if anybody's saying slow down, or if anybody has a question. This is your chance, because I'm going to look while you're playing with yours and get a little drink of water here. Okay, what do we see? Yosemite. Oh, people are voting. People are voting for, if you missed the start, I'm taking requests for the next Facebook Live class that I teach. It's going to be on July, what did I say, 31st? 2 weeks from tonight on a Friday. It's called Dream Vacation, and I haven't figured out yet what that will be. So I'm asking people to kind of weigh in on that. Lena, I'm sorry, you're telling me that it's blurry. Hopefully no one else is blurry. Hello, Rita Helen. I'm looking for questions here. If you're late to class, this will be reposted as a recorded video, and it will be up indefinitely on this Facebook page here. It is a bit blurry. Okay, shoot. Okay, I'll see if I can adjust that out. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and see if that helps. Everybody's doing good. Doing good. Welcome. Welcome from Livermore. Kristen. Monterey, San Francisco. You can use whatever colors you want. If you have colors that you want your fish to be, go ahead and do that. You could have a black and white little cowfish if you want. And whatever you like is totally fine. Dream vacation in Greece, that would be cool. Okay. All right, we got through all the questions. I think that gives you a little bit of time to work on the fish there a little bit. I think I'm going to be okay with that. I like that I got some intensity on the spots and also some of that soft blurriness. So I'm happy with that. Now, the trick with this type of a painting is we got to get these fish done so that we can start getting the water happening. And what I'm going to do is actually, I think I will have us do these fins right now, so that way we can have this whole side drying while we're working on that side. So back to my number 6 brush. How do you like it? I'm always changing my mind midstream. Crazy artists, come on. Okay, let's get clear water again on the brush. I'm gonna have to be a little careful here where it touches up against my pre-done painting, because I don't really want the blue to flow in over here. If it does, you'll know why and you'll know what's happening. So you're just gonna pre-wet. Now, if your fish that you just painted has any color right there and you wet this fin, the color from the body is gonna flow into the fin. But guess what? that's okay, because really the colors from the body are going to continue onto the fin. You could have more white on the fins if you like, but there probably will be a little color that follows down the rest of the fin. So since I had some orange there, which mine was that quinacridone burnt sienna, which is very orangey, I'm going to take just a little bit on the brush, not too much, and I'm just going to barely touch that on. I'm sort of following around the lower edge or the outside edge of that fin, and I do want it to connect to the body, so I'm going to make sure that that happens. I'm sorry, you have a little glare on yours, so I'm going to try and tip it a little bit, and I'm tipping it also on purpose because I want this paint to flow gradually down the fin. So if you want that to happen and it's nice and wet, not like a lake, but it's shiny wet, you can dot a little paint on there, and then you can tip your paper like this, and if you watch carefully, I'm sorry, I'm shaking a little, it will flow. We can even do something like that. Okay, you can do a couple of lines if you want, and let that travel down, and that's going to be our fin. We're going to do the same thing over on this one, but this one I'm going to leave it a little more white just for fun so you can see the difference between the two. So same thing again, we're going to pre-wet it with clear water, and if your fish body is still wet, that color from the wet body is going to go down this fin, but we just have clear water on there. And this one I see a little bit more of a red over here, so I'm going to put some orange but also some red. So I'm just touching it on with my brush, okay, and then I'm going to tip it so that it flows down, and while it's flowing down, maybe I'll add a little bit of red in there too. So that way it kind of carries in with what happened on the rest of the body. And remember, we learned about the water dam, so wherever it's wet, the paint will flow. Wherever it's not wet, so wherever it's dry, it's going to stay dry and no paint will get in there. And I'm kind of feeling lucky. This interesting thing happened here where it's kind of creating an interesting, I don't know, forked look or a stripy look on the bottom of that fin, which I do like. So I'm going to see if I can replicate that up here by just, oops, oh well, I guess we're going to have some red on that fin now. I forgot what I had on my brush. I'm just going to maybe really carefully just do a little, maybe just a little stripy stripe, okay? And later that's going to look like, we're going to make it look like water is kind of showing through the fin as though they're sort of transparent. I got to move that because I don't like that. Okay. All right. How are we doing? Something about the microphone. Are you all hearing me okay with the microphone? Somebody wrote a comment and I'm not sure. Hopefully you can hear okay. If not, please let me know because I'm trying to watch. Oh, I got a thumbs up from people. Okay, thank you, folks. All right. Now I'm just going to turn this around because it's easier for me to paint this way. And if you need to do that, feel free to do that on yours as well, because it's just easier to paint when the fish is closer, right? If you got here late and you didn't hear, it's fun for me to, thank you guys for the comments about the microphone. It's fun for me to hear where you're from. So if you're joining late and you want to put your name and where you're watching from, that's really fun. And what else? Oh, I do always like to tell people that I have kids classes. I teach children in an elementary school, and when we first went on COVID quarantine, I did a bunch of classes and put them up on a YouTube channel. So I have a YouTube channel with 51 free videos that you can watch or kids can watch, whatever. So they're up there, and all you have to do is look up my name, Margaret Blanchfield, and you will find that whole channel, and you can watch anything that you want on there. There's some adult, well, not adult, but you know, other paintings, more serious paintings, and there's some kid projects. So there's all kinds of stuff if you want to check that out. And I always appreciate the likes or the follows. Okay, let's move on to fish body number 2. How are you doing? I hope it looks good to you. I think I moved the paper up. Yeah, there we go. We can see the bottom now. Okay, so just like we did before, let's pre-wet this, remembering to try and stay inside the lines of the fish body. And if it starts to get dry on you, just re-wet it a second time. I'm staying out of the fins for now because it's just easier to control one thing at a time. So I'm just wetting the body, and I'm going to wet the tail also. Guess what? We are halfway through our time, and we're going to make it happen so that you finish. When you get to the tail, you can do like just quick strokes, and don't worry if you don't get everything in the tail wet. Maybe there'll be a dry section in there, and that's okay, because that's going to be fun for us later. It's going to make it look like the water is showing through his semi-transparent tail. So I'm just re-wetting everything in case my paper got too dry, making sure I'm staying in the lines, making sure I don't have any dry spots. Okay, and I learned before that my paper is drying fast tonight, so you'll see me re-wet the tail again in a minute. Okay, so the second fish, I'll quickly show you here, mine is more orange. You are welcome to do whatever kind of fish you want. If you want to have a more spotty fish like we had on our first one, you can do that. But I'll probably do one that's a little more orange, just to give us 2 different things to learn. All right, so just like we did before, you're going to get your color. Let me show you something different on this one and let you decide if you want to do this. I have yellow on my brush, and again, that yellow is Winsor Yellow Deep, which is a very golden, sunshiny yellow. So my brush is loaded with Winsor Yellow Deep. My fish is wet. Let's do this. I'm going to just do something like that. I'm going to give him a little bit of glow and maybe a little more down there. Now, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but the effect is going to be that we're going to have a more orangey glowing fish for this guy. Okay, so I got the yellow on, and you can see it's moving around because that fish is wet. So wherever wet paper is, paint will follow. So now, before it dries, now I'm going to get myself some orange, and I'm going to start outside of that yellow. I'm not going into the yellow just yet because I want the yellow to have a chance to sort of dry a little bit. I'm going to do myself some spots like before. Not getting into the yellow yet. It's going to travel into the yellow on its own, but I'm not going to help it right now. I'm going to give him a kind of a band of orange here along the side, and I'm not stroking the paint on, I'm just dotting or dabbing the paint on. Sometimes you'll see me go along the edge, kind of cutting that paint in, but mostly I'm just touching it on, so it's kind of like touch, 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 and then it swims around. Right here it got a little dry, so that's why it's not swimming. If that happens to you, just rinse your brush so it's clear water and just touch a little water onto there. Okay. Welcome from Washington. Thank you for joining. See right here, I am taking some of this orange that's already on there, and I'm really thinning it out, so you could probably barely see any color there. It's just the slightest hint of orange, because I'm just kind of going to let that section be very soft color. And now I have orange again. Let's go into some of that yellow and see what happens. It's not going to be it'll be a subtle difference, okay, but it just gives the fish a little bit of a glow. I'm going to let this yellow stay right there and do nothing with that for now. And then I'm going to bring some spots. How about we go up and down like this? Give your spots some variety. And I'm thinking that as I approach this tail a little bit more, I'm going to find that it's getting drier and drier down here. So I will probably, once I get into the tail, have to re-wet things. Okay, interesting spot. Try to be interesting with your spots. What does that even mean? Be interesting with my spots. And then down here at the tail, it's drier, so you can see that the paint down here is not traveling and smearing around as much. And I like that because it just breaks it up. It gives us some very soft, flowy areas and some more stark is maybe the word I'm going to use for that. Stark. Okay, and let me re-wet that tail. Just clear water on here, pull some of that down, kind of like just drawing some little streaks, and watch what happens if I just take a little bit of orange and touch it in there and tip the paper. See how it flows down the tail? If you missed a spot, maybe you can just touch a little while it's tipped, and it's just going to flow down in a really interesting way. And then you can lay it flat. You can keep it tipped if you want to get it all the way to the end there, or you can flatten it out. Okay. I'm going to just take some clear water and soften this up. You're wondering about that yellow, huh? I'm going to do something with that in just a second. Sometimes I like the edges of these spots to be a little softer, and the way you do that is to just put some clear water on there, just plain water. Move that up a little bit. We have 140 of you in class right now, maybe 139. So thank you for being here on your Friday night. Now, look what happened. We have this yellow kind of made, the orange flowed into the yellow, and it left an interesting kind of zigzaggy thing on there. So if you like it, you can leave it like that. If you don't like it, you can put another color in. Let's see, we don't have any black on this fish yet. Should we have some black on there? Black and yellow, sometimes not so good, but we're gonna do it on mine instead of yours to see. I don't want it to look too greenish. Maybe some over here. The fish is really wet still, so you can see that this paint is swimming around. These are going to be more like gray spots than black on this guy. Maybe I'll come down into the tail a little bit and sort of model that. Mottle with a T, not model like supermodel. And if you don't like the yellow, you can get a little red if you like, and you can put some red on there. And what does red and yellow make when they mix? Orange. So that'll help us cover that up, but still we get a little glow of the yellow. And if you want to soften something, like I'm in this area, I want to soften that up, so we just take clear water on the brush again and just paint with clear, and that red will swim around a little bit. So you sort of have a lot of working time on this. You get to spend some time maybe dotting in color or spotting. Once this is all the way dry, you can come back tomorrow or an hour from now or whatever. We can go back on that and add more onto the spots if you want to. I'll probably do that in a minute so I can show you what I mean on the other fish, which is a video. Okay, I think we're back. I think what happened is internet trouble. I feel like my internet has been a little spotty for a few days. So I think that it maybe is going in and out or something. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here. Okay, I'm still here. I'm waving my brush. All right. It's freezing up. I know. Man, internet. Okay, well, I'm not going to do anything else right now. I'm going to pause just in case. I don't want people to get left out because I blacked out on the internet. So I'm going to wait a minute and just kind of watch. Maybe you can hit the thumbs up if you feel like it's okay. It looks like it might be okay now. Yes, I didn't forget about the back fins. I'm going to show you that on this fish. I did not put any back fins on the other fish. Thank you, everybody. I see your happy faces. So it looks like we're good. Thanks. It's fun to watch those. It's like confetti going up the screen. So this fish that I'm doing now, I'm going to put back fins on, but not on this guy yet. This guy, I think I'm going to leave him. I like him better without. And I just wanted you to see two different types of fish. Okay, I see lots of thumbs up. I think everybody is back on the video. So don't worry. Remember, I'm posting this for you. So if something happens and we get that freeze up, we'll still have the video for you to watch later, the recording. All right, and that did us a little favor, and it gave my fish a little time to dry. So if I come back in with some more spotting, I can intensify that a little bit because I had that little bit of time for drying. Uh-oh. Some people still have no video? Shoot. Comcast. I didn't say that out loud. If anybody works for Comcast, I'm sorry. But it's been something going on lately. Okay. While we're hanging out here and kind of waiting, you can look at your fish. If you see something you don't like I don't care for what happened here, I can just take water on my brush and kind of blend that in and bring it down a little bit into the tail. It was sort of a weird splotchiness. Okay, now I don't want us to get too far behind, so I'm going to quickly do a couple of fins here, and just like we did before on I'll do these back fins and then the front fins. I didn't draw them ahead of time, maybe you guys did, but I'm just going to paint clear water on here, joining it up to the body, take a little touch of my orange and touch it into that fin, because these are just bitty little fins, and join it to the body. Connect it, I should say. And it is barely there. It's really hard to see, so I'll darken it up for you. There we go, a little bit more. And then, just so you can see what it'll look like, I'm going to paint this one onto dry paper. We've been doing wet into wet all this time, but here we're just going to paint, I'm just going to paint it on dry. So you can see what the difference is between these two. So the dry one has way more intensity of color. This guy over here on this side is softer. So I can add a little bit more paint if I want to bring that out a little bit more. Okay, so those are my back fins. And all the while, I keep looking back at those spots up here, and if they're not intense enough for you, drop on some more paint again. As the paper starts to dry, the paint will become more, the spots will become more intense. So if you're putting it on drier paper, they're going to really stand out more. If you're putting it on wet paper, it's going to spread out a little bit like that. Okay, now we have to do these other fins on the body, and we're going to switch the paper around after that and start some water before we run out of time. Looks like everybody's good with the video. Okay, we're going to paint just plain water on this fin, carry it off the edge of the page. I'm doing sort of some flicky, like you're flicking your hair or something, and grab some paint, touch it on right here, and then tip my paper. You can tip it towards the body so you get that close, but you can tip it this way too, so that that paint runs down the length of the fin, and by the time it gets to the bottom of the fin, there won't be very much paint there at all. Really, I'm sorry about what happened with the weird video internet connection just then. I think that something in my neighborhood, I was trying to watch a show last night and it kept cutting out, and I thought, oh, please don't let that happen tomorrow for class, but maybe it is. And for me, I also feel like this is not as clear. It's not as crisp and clear in the video as it is usually. So if that's happening, I apologize. I'm using the exact same setup as always, but we're not having the clarity. So maybe there's some kind of weird internet thing happening here. I just darkened up the fin close there because I wanted more color up against the body on that one. Okay, and I'm going to do this other one, and then I'll pause. So we pre-wet but flick, so you can kind of get an interesting flowy fin. Get your paint. Maybe I'll have a little tiny touch of red in this one, and then some orange on top of that, because I don't want it to just be like the fin is bleeding. It's just so orange. So so red, so I did have to add some orange in it. Okay, so I'm tipping, and the paint will only go where the water is. If you need it to go beyond, maybe you left a spot dry, you can just take your brush with just clear water and kind of clean it up. So you can connect it to the body a little bit by pulling the paint up there. You can kind of give yourself a few more flicks like that and pull the paint that's already there down into the lower part of the fin. You can always do that. You can go back over to the other one here. I'll move it up a little bit and kind of create some quick, I like to go quick because it feels like a little bit more flowy. Okay, and since we're doing that, how about I do that on the tail too? My tail's already dry, so if I were to come in just on dry paper, it's going to look like this, just sort of flicking. And if you don't like that, I'll show you what to do to fix it. So let me do this, and then I'll show you the fix. Okay, so let's say I have that. Whoops, here we go. My hand was in the way for you, sorry. Okay, you can often fix most anything with just rinsing your brush. And now I'm going to do that same flicking motion with just clear water in the tail, and it will sort of disperse some of that paint that you put down there and soften things up, and then you have more of a flicky tail like that. I'm not going to do it on this guy because I need him to be dry. Okay, let's see. Take a drink of your water or eat some chocolate. Take a break for a second unless you are still working. I'm having some grapes. I always talk about food, I know, but my next door neighbors are so lovely. They're getting all these food donations because the wife next door has breast cancer, and she's doing amazingly well. It's great. She's so fierce. But they're getting all these food donations from people, and they have so much food they can't eat it, so they're giving me food. So I have nice dinner for after our fish class tonight. By the way, while you're catching up, I want to say something. The snout of this fish is actually white, and my pencil lines are really light, so you can't see it very well. Let's see if I can hold it up. Maybe that's more clear. So, whoops, sorry. So when I start with my water, I'm going to carve around that snout and make it, there we go, and make it stand out. So you'll be able to see once we add water that there's white on the end of his nose, okay? It looks like a weird shaped orange fish, but there is a little bit more white on there than what you can see. So that's what's happening with that. Okay. Yes, we are going to do the background. We're going to do the background right now. Let's see. I'm reading through, see if I missed any questions. I think we're okay. All right, are we ready to move on to water? I'm going to turn my paper back around. Those of you that did the sea turtle with me, we did a section with the sea turtle when, let's see, move this down. We did the top of the shell, and then we did the bottom of the shell. We did it that way because we're letting the top of the shell dry out while we're working on the other part, so that we can paint the water. So if we've done this successfully, this first fish should be dry to the touch and not feeling cold at all. Cold or damp means damp. This guy is still drying, so we're not going to have water over there yet. We will eventually, but for now we're going to start with water over here. Okay, so I'm using a variety of blues, and I'll tell you all the names of the blues. This one right here is cerulean blue, so I'm going to use some of that. This is my ultimate favorite. This is called peacock blue. I might use some ultramarine, but I really prefer this one, which is called Prussian blue. And I do have a little bit of a really intense turquoise. So those are all my blues, and I'll probably even throw in some purple. The purple is called Windsor Violet. Okay, so if you didn't catch that, you can catch it in the video because it's all recorded. So those are going to be all my watercolors. I'm going to turn my palette a little bit so that I can get to those more easily. And if you have a mister, you might want to re-mist those so they're kind of juicy. I did that ahead of time, but it does dry out with a ceiling fan on. And here we go. Okay, so this is our water situation. Just like with everything else, we're going to paint clear water on first, and then we're going to start dropping in the color of the water. We're going to drop in the blues. So I have to be really careful here because I don't want any blue inside of the fish body. So I'm watching for my pencil lines, and I'm carefully carving or outlining the fish with clear water. And part of the reason why I asked you to get some of those fins to go off the edge of the page is this gives us a stopping place. We're not going to do anything that way just yet. We're going to concentrate on this area, okay? And then I'm going to come back up in here, and I'm going to wet around that tail. And this tail on the upper fish is probably still wet or damp, so don't get any water on it. Otherwise, it will flow. Your blue paint will flow into that, and you may not want that yet. So let me move up a little bit. Because I have the sample painted right below it, some of that blue from the sample painting will flow up into here, but that's okay because it's just still watercolors, meaning blues and things like that. So we're going to be okay about that. All right, so when you have that nice and wet, I'm going to stay with my large brush on this one because I don't want to be too picky with the water, and if you have a larger brush, it's easier to get this done faster, but also to not be really picky about little things. You're going to see me use a tiny brush in a second, this little red one, but not just yet. Okay, so choose one of your blues. It doesn't matter to me, or even do a blue first. We're not going to do any purple yet. But here's a hint. If you've got a white area on the fish, why don't you make that one of your most dark, intense blues, because that'll be a really good contrast of a really dark blue up against a white area. So I'm choosing Prussian blue. And with my brush, I'm just going to touch this on. And remember how the paint goes wherever it's wet, but not anywhere else. So I'm going to be okay as long as I don't have that tail wet, that I'm just going to kind of touch that on, rinse my brush, pick a different blue, touch that on. This is peacock blue, just kind of dabbing it on there. And for fun, I'm going to rinse that and do a third one. I'm going to take phthalo, it's phthalo, P-H-T-H-A-L-O, phthalo turquoise. We're going to dot that on. So we get a little variety in our water. You want purple too? Marilee, my friend Marilee from Arkansas is here. Welcome, welcome. I saw your dog swimming in the lake. Okay, look, here's a little turquoise. I'm sorry, here's a little purple. I just did a couple dots of purple. All right, now watch the magic happen. You're going to tip your paper on this. So you will be tempted to use your brush to constantly fix and correct and dab at everything, but we don't want to do that. We are going to just use the paper, the tipping of the paper, to let our colors blend and flow. Okay, if you get something like I did where you have a spot, that purple is a hard spot right there, it's probably a little glob of paint, you can use your brush to like spot that around and manipulate that. Okay, and then just a minute ago I talked to you about my tiny brush. Your tiny brush is your friend when you need to get your paint up close. Maybe there's a place that you left dry right up next to the fish body. You can use your tiny brush for that. You can use your tiny brush to nibble inside, in between the pieces of this tail. So you can carry that blue in between the little sections of the neighboring fish's tail. You could use your tiny brush to get all the way to the edge of the paper. That's pretty intense. I have a lot of paint on that one, but we can move that around. You could also, I mean, you won't have this situation like I do, but you could use your tiny brush to carefully do the line between the pre-painted. You don't have a pre-painted, but these are all things that you can use that tiny brush for. And again, if you get an area that's too intense and you don't like the color, just spot some clear water on there and just dab that around a little bit, and that'll soften it. Okay, so I'm going to use this tiny brush to come up here and bring some of the paint that's already on the paper. There's no paint on this brush. I'm just pulling what's on the paper up into this area. Okay, so I'm fine with this. I'm going to go on in a second, but I need you to know one little tip. Right here where we stopped, this if we're not careful and this gets too dry, this can become a hard line, meaning like a line in your water, and you don't want that because water is supposed to be watery. There aren't really any outliney shapes in water. So this is what we need to do to take care of that before that happens. Get a smaller brush, get some water on it, and just start bringing the water. Now you're going to travel around and you're going to come, if your other fish is dry, you can get up close to that one, but if it's not, all you're going to do is just, with your water, just kind of paint some clear water. It gives this paint a chance to flow up into there and not be a hard edge, okay? And then just think about trying to keep that damp or wet right in there, all right? And that's what we're going to do with that. Let's see. If you're here late, welcome, and thanks for joining. And this is recorded, so you can watch it another time, over and over and over again. It'll be here on Facebook indefinitely, and all my other painting class videos are also on Facebook indefinitely, so you will be able to watch later if you like. Okay, so let's do one other funny thing in this water before we're done. It's still wet, and I have plain water on this brush. I can go like this and tap my brush, and I'm kind of moving my brush, but I'm tapping my finger on it, sort of like, think about salt. You're shaking salt out, and what it does is it puts a few spots of water on, and then it makes the water, it moves the paint around in the water, and it kind of makes an interesting, maybe it feels like a swirliness or a bubbliness or something. It just does a really interesting thing in your water there. So you can always do that. Okay, so let's carry on. I'm watching the time. We have 15 minutes left, so we're doing fine. We need to carry the water around this side of the fish. He's probably still too wet, so we're going to stay with the lower fish now. We're going to bring clear water up around that fin, in between the fin and the body, and fill in this whole area to where that tail goes off the edge. So we've created this other shape here, so we can break it up, and we're just going to do that. And we'll probably put a little water in between these pieces of that fin as well. Okay, are we good? Hanging in there? Okay, thank you. Hi, Leslie. All right. I'm going to use a little smaller brush in here because this is a tiny area right in between the fin and the body. If you feel like you didn't get it all wet, don't worry about it because we can correct that later, but just still try to keep clear water off the fish body or the fish fin. And then I'm just going to come around and get up close to the rest of his body on this side. Switching out to a little bit bigger brush for this big area. Okay, and if your paper starts to dry out, just keep re-wetting it. It's all right. You can't really hurt it. I mean, if you re-wet it several times, you'll be okay. Sometimes even in paintings, we paint it, we let it dry, we come back, we do another, it's called a glaze or a wash over that, and then we let it dry, and another, and you can have up to, I don't know, I've seen paintings where there's so many, I've probably done 10 or 15 layers sometimes over the top, and it creates an interesting effect. Okay, so you should have this whole area wet, and again, think about maybe having a really intense dark color like this phthalo turquoise up against a lighter body area, because it will create a nice change in value from dark to light and really make that fish stand out. So I'm just carefully going around him. Now I'm going to leave that be, and how about we get another color, my favorite peacock blue, tap that in there. How about a little purple? I'm watching what color I have over here, because I want my water on this side of the fin to be similar, and I have purple there. So I want to put a little purple up in here on this side of the fin too, okay? And that's pretty intense, but we're going to take care of that in just a second. Let's do a little purple over there. Also, see how you can just sort of splash it on almost, and not be too picky about it? Because as long as this paper is wet, it's going to do some really fun things. This is Prussian blue again now, so I'm going to do a big swoop of that over in here and just throw some down in there. Maybe a little more turquoise. Okay, that's good for now. Now I'm rocking my paper, letting the paints mix themselves. You have to watch out for your other area up here. If it's still wet, you got to watch for drips there too. So if it's too scary to tip your paper, maybe just tip it a little bit less, okay? And not so much so that we drip all over the place. Here comes my small brush again, like I used before, and the small brush with just clear water on it, I can get right up close to that fish body. Later on, when you guys are done, not right now because you're concentrating and you're busy, but maybe in the comments, if you feel like it later, if you did the sea turtles and you are now doing the fish, just for kicks, maybe you could tell me which one you think was harder or easier. Don't worry about it right now. You can tell me later. I just kind of want to take a little survey, a little poll. Okay, so small brush gets right up in there, all the way around that fin. If you're wondering, this small brush is a number 8, and different brands of brushes will have different sizes. Unfortunately, it's kind of like when you shop at Nordstrom, size 2 means a different thing than shopping at Kohl's, or it's like the sizes are not always totally universal within different, not necessarily the stores, but different brands. So same for here. Okay, so now I'm tipping, but I'm watching for drips, making sure that I don't have any unwanted drips. And then just with whatever paint is left on this little bitty brush, I'm going to pull it up here into this, in between the pieces of this fin. Kind of gives it a flowiness. Some goldfish are called fancy goldfish, or fancy, I don't know the names of koi, but maybe they have fancy koi too. And that's when they have that neat flowiness to them. Okay. Thank you, Linda. The turtle was way more detailed. Yeah, it had all those little shell pieces on it, the scales or whatever we were calling them at that time. Okay, we're doing good. We're coming into the home stretch. I feel like if we don't finish this today, I'm going to show you enough so that you can be able to finish the other side of the water. quickly. And then on our sample, this one right here, I have it attached here because I want to show you something on this one that's totally dry, which you can do on yours later, not right now, but once it's totally dry. And that's going to be about placing the fish actually into the water, like sinking them into the water, and also doing eyeballs because we got to have fish eyes. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn my paper again. You want another minute before we go on? What do you think? You guys want another minute? How about if we say thumbs up means I'm good to go on? Okay, I see some thumbs. Thank you, guys. A few more thumbs. Again, oh, lots of thumbs. Okay, and hearts. Yay, okay. All right. So now on the rest of this painting, let me zoom out a tiny touch so that you can see a little bit more of it. Let's see, zoom. There we go. There. Hopefully that's still close enough for you to see, but it's far enough for you to see even more of the painting. All right, now let's take a look at what we have left. We have two basic shapes left. We have this whole shape coming in between the fish that ends up here where this fin goes off the edge of the page. So this whole guy here, and we have this little one. This little one is easy. If you need to, you can do it on your own. So I'm gonna concentrate on this big section right here. Bigger sections are tricky because you gotta work fast to get it done before stuff starts to dry. So here's my tip for you on that. Extra wet this, okay? So we're gonna start back up here and we're gonna do, being careful to carve around that snout. You don't want any water on the snout, but how about if you paint it 2 or maybe 3 times with water? So it's gonna be extra wet, but it'll stay wet longer for you and gives you a little bit more working time. And if you can't get right up close to the fish, remember we can correct that later using that tiny, if you have a tiny brush, or if you have any type of smaller brush. Okay, so we're just right now doing clear water. I got to be careful around this guy because I told you a little bit earlier that this guy has a white snout, so I really want to make sure I don't cut into too much of that white and I'll lose that snout. Again, when you get to that tail, you can just kind of do some flicky stuff, flicking your clear water into the tail, and leave some dry areas in there. That's okay, because the dry areas are going to remain white. Paint will not flow into that dry paper, so it's going to remain white for you. Sort of does the job for you a little bit. Okay, being really careful around here. I think somebody just gave me the 5-minute warning. Thank you for that. I don't mind staying a few extra minutes here because I don't want you to feel super rushed. We're going to make sure we finish this part, and we're going to make sure I show you the eyes. If you have to leave, of course, you're not going to get an F for the day or anything. If you leave, if you cut class, there's no F. But I don't want to leave you in the lurch where you don't know what's going on. Don't forget, the next painting class is July 31st at 7 o'clock, so 2 weeks from tonight, and the title is Dream Vacation. And I told everybody earlier that I'm taking requests because I haven't decided yet what the dream vacation is. So people are going to have different ideas, and maybe some people will throw me ideas in the comments later. You don't need to do it now. You can do it later if you want to. And let me know what you'd like. Maybe I will find a good idea that I haven't thought about. Okay, so I got good and wet. here is my lightest area. Okay, the fish body is white and the paper is white. Here we had this really intense purple on that side, so I'm going to repeat that over on this side because I want the water to kind of flow under the fish and be the same. So I want to have a nice batch of really good purple in there so that that part of his body stands out. I'm going to have to use my small brush there in a second. And then I'm going to throw some more purple around here and there, just randomly. How about a little bit up in here because we had purple up there. If you get a spot like this that's way too intense, remember, you just get clear water on the brush and just dilute that before it sets up, before it starts to dry on your paper. If it does dry on your paper, you can actually kind of scrub it just a little bit with your brush and it'll loosen it up. Okay. All right, so I'm going to be dripping and dropping a lot of different colors in here. So I'll tell you guys on here, let's carry it around. Let's let it swirl down around this guy. Sometimes you see me kind of swiping or stroking it on there. Sometimes you see me just touching it onto the paper, but I have to work fast because I want to be able to pick up the paper. This is peacock blue right now, by the way. I have to be able to pick up the paper and let it rock, so I gotta fill it up with color. Don't let this freak you out. Remember, if you're freaking out, you can pause. You can stop your painting altogether right now and pick it up again another time. Finish it off. So if it stresses you, this is supposed to be fun. We're having relaxing time together, not thinking about other things, and I don't want you to be stressed, okay? So don't forget, you can always come back later. Here's a little bit more phthalo turquoise. Okay, before it sets up, I'm gonna rock it. I gotta be careful. I'm watching every place. This is a pretty big section, so we have a lot of potential areas for drip problems, or a lot of places that I'm going to have to babysit, meaning I got to go in with my smaller brush and really pull that up to the edge. Let's leave that snout there. So you gotta you've got your work cut out for you on this one, and you don't need to have paint on your brush. You can just have water, and whatever paint is near the fish is what you're going to be moving around. If it feels too light for you, certainly you can dip into paint, or you can grab paint from somewhere else, like a wet puddle in here. Okay, so we got all that. Let's clean up this tail right here. We'll take some of this dark, pull that around, down around the tail. Just getting, with my brush, getting right up into the tail, into any areas that I accidentally didn't get wet enough. Pull some paint in, like this maybe. If you don't like that, get your paint brush wet and just have some clear water. By the way, I forgot to tell you also, or ask you, if you want to, it would be really fun if you post your completed fish painting up online for everybody to see, because even though we're separated by the internet and other things in our world right now, we can be a community together here, and it's really nice to see what the other people in our community are doing with their painting. So later tonight, or sorry, probably later tomorrow, I'm going to post my finished painting, and then in the comments of that, it would be great if you could post yours too, if you feel like it. And it's just really fun for everybody to see all the variety and the different fish that we've done. Okay, so I'm working fast, I know, but I don't want that paint to dry out and have dry paper. And help yourself if you need to. You can rotate your paper like you see me turning mine around. Sometimes it's just easier to paint at a different angle. Okay, cleaning all that up, cleaning up in between the fin pieces. Let's see, what else do I have? You can pick up your paper and rock it again, side to side. Move that around if you need to. I know this kind of distorts your view here, but you get the idea of what's happening. You can pull more paint into the fins, kind of streak them up, leave some sections of the fin white, because I think it looks nice. And so see, now this guy has a white snout, so I was really careful to keep it dry, and now he has a little white snout. There is one area that I want to point out to you that needs a little attention, and that is right here in between these two fish. Okay, that was where we had, it was getting drier over here and we had to make a blend happen. So it's set up to make kind of a funny line. All you have to do to fix that is get a paintbrush wet, blot it on a paper towel, get some of the water off, and just very gently, like you're putting sunscreen on a baby's skin that has sunburn already. You're just gonna, my teacher always called it petting, P-E-T-T-I-N-G, petting the paper. You're petting it right there to make the blend. And if you have a weird snout like this guy does, you can correct it. Let's see what I want to do to correct him. Oh, he's gonna be a funny shape. Okay. You just want to, you can just get some paint and recarve the shape. Here we go. We'll make it more like that. That's okay, I guess. See, I make mistakes too. Okay, I know we're at 8:33. So, I'm not going to paint this other water section because I don't want anybody stressed out. I'm going to pause for a minute while you're working. Uh-oh, Lena said that she lost the video and it's glitching again. Shoot, I'm so sorry. Thanks, Julie. I think I'm live right now. I don't think I lost my video, so I'm gonna go on as though everything is okay. I see shadows moving on mine. Okay, so if you need to stop or you need to leave or you lost the video, remember, you have the recording. But I'm going to switch back over to this dry side. Oh, thank you, thumbs up. Okay, cool. I'm going to switch over to this dry side so that I can show you the last couple of things to do, and then I'm going to switch my video camera back so it's looking at me so I can say a proper goodbye to you. Okay, the eyes of the fish are not, they're barely there. It's hard to see them. So with something like your black, here's, mine was called neutral tint, and a very small brush. I like to just put a little bit out on my palette here so I can kind of get into there. And I don't have a bunch, I don't have a whole lot on that brush, just a little bit. Okay, the eyes are like this. Let's do this upper guy first. You're looking down on him from above, so you're not going to see a round eye like this. You're going to see almost just like a sliver of an eye, kind of like something like that. Okay, and then on the other side you can do another sliver just like that. So really simple shape on the eye. Let me hold it closer to the camera so you can see better. All right, I have to hold it here for a second because I have the lag. Okay, there it comes. All right, I just needed to make sure that you could really see it. Okay, so now let's put them on. I'll put them on the other fish. I don't think you're probably putting your eyes on right now because you're probably not done with your water, but I want you to see what happens. So here's another eye, and this is a weird shape over here, but I'm just going to put him, maybe the eye is coming all the way over to the edge, something like that. You could even do a little swoop around the eye. Maybe it looks like eyelid or something. Fish don't have eyelids, but maybe it's an eyebrow. Okay, so that's that. And now the very last part. Sorry to hold you up. I hope we're okay with me doing this. But these fish are not exactly in the water yet because we have so much white. And when you're looking at fish in the water, they're not going to be white like that. So with a very light shade of your blue or a very watered down blue, so really mix a lot of water and dilute it. I'm using peacock blue, and I'll show you. I'm going to put it into my palette like this, and I'm going to add even more water into the palette. So it's very, very watery. Think about like light tea. You know, you didn't brew your tea for very long. It's just really light, okay? And so I have that on my largest brush. I'm going to sink him into the water like this. It's scary, but you got to do it. You're going to put a little blue tint. Watch out for those eyes because they're still wet, and try not to rub on the paper too much. Just be very gentle because you don't want to move that orange or whatever color paint around. So you're just going to put a little bit, I got to dip into some more. Just going to put a little bit of tint of blue on top of the fish. If you miss a few spots, it's not a big deal because maybe his back is up out of the water, but his tail needs to go into the water. It's still going to read as a white tail, but you're giving it a tint. Okay, and so now it's subtle, but you can see the difference between this tail and this tail. I think I'm looking at my monitor. Hopefully you can see. And then that's it, and then you're done, except for I made a mistake there. Okay, so now if you get dizzy, look away because I'm going to move the camera for a second, and then I'm going to put the camera back down on the desktop for another few minutes in case you want to see this fish a little bit more. Okay, here we go. That's me standing on a chair. Okay, it's crooked, but all right. Thank you so much. Thanks again for being here. It's free, but I do appreciate any tips. So, but don't worry because I don't want you to have the hard sell here. Thank you for joining me. It's really great to have this community and be able to share this with you. Please share your paintings, and if you found or you find that you have any questions, remember, put them in the comments because I'm going to answer everything that I can, which is usually, I'll answer them all, don't worry. And I appreciate you. I'll put the camera back down onto the desktop for one last little look at the painting. But thank you. Have a great weekend and a safe night. Stay happy, stay healthy, and don't forget, make art every day. Bye. Okay, here comes the camera. Look away if you get dizzy. Okay, so there's that. And what else? Let's see. Oops, I'm stretching my... I'll put this back up. Oh, sorry, forgot to do that. That would be helpful. Wait a minute. Sorry, forgot to... Oh, I'm still here. I just forgot to turn the camera around. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now you can see the fish, all the different things. By the way, this was an acrylic painting. It's just I wanted you to see another fish pose, so we'll put that over here to the side in case anybody's interested in looking at that. But I think we are good to go. Have a great night, and thank you so much for joining me. Bye.